Welcome back to my top 5 here on NBA Uprise. I'm Eric Brandt. Today's topic is my top 5 most valuable player candidates for the 2022-2023 NBA season. As always, I want you, the viewer, to participate as well. So please leave your top 5 MVP candidates in the comments below. Whether you just discovered this channel or you're enjoying the My Top 5 series here, I'd really appreciate it if you consider subscribing to the channel. It would really help us out and help us grow our general NBA content. With that being said, let's get into my top 5 MVP candidates. At number 5, I have Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors. Coming off winning his 4th championship, the 34-year-old Curry could get back into the running for an MVP again. He's already won it twice before in the past. In order to do that, I think he'll have to improve a little bit on his shooting numbers from last year. Was that just a random dip outlier, or was it who he is as he gets older and not quite as good of a shooter? He shot about 38% from 3 last year, whereas the rest of his career he's been over 42%. So if he can narrow that gap a little bit and become a little closer to the shooting that he's accustomed to, I think he has a really good chance, because when you combine that with the Warriors' team success, they figure to be near the top of the standings in the West again. And, all those things combined, usually the best player from one of the best teams is going to be up there in the standings. Now, I don't always agree that that player should automatically be considered, but Steph Curry puts up good enough numbers and has a good enough pedigree to be in the running this year. At number 4, I have Nikola Jokic from the Denver Nuggets. While I certainly believe he has been deserving of winning the previous 2 MVP seasons, no player since Larry Bird from 83 to 86 has won 3 in a row. That includes Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, Magic Johnson. None of those players won 3 in a row. In fact, other than Bird, the only other 2 players to do it in NBA history are Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. Voter fatigue is a real thing when it comes to awards, and it will likely prevent Jokic from winning 3 in a row no matter what kind of season he has. That combined with Jamal Murray being back and taking some of the burden off, I just don't think Jokic will get the same credit he's gotten for carrying that team the last 2 years to the playoffs and being a good, solid team with multiple injuries and roster issues. So even if he builds upon how good he is and has an amazing season, unfortunately for him, I think other players, if they're close, will get votes over him simply because a lot of times voters just want to vote in someone new. And then there was also kind of a controversy between him and Joel Embiid last year on who should have won it. And so I think, once again, if it's close, someone like that would get votes over Jokic. So I would have him higher normally because I think he's an amazing player, but I just don't think the cards are going to let him win it 3 years in a row. At number 3, I have Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. Embiid will certainly be one of the favorites to win MVP this year, but the reason I put him 3rd instead of higher on my list is for 2 reasons. The first being that James Harden will be there for a full season. Now, Harden's obviously not as good as he once was, but in order for this team to be elite and near the top of the East standings, I believe they need Harden to be better than he was last year and come in ready to play and shoulder some of that load on offense. And if he does that, even if it's not quite to the degree of what we're used to seeing from Harden, it will take away a little bit of Joel Embiid's stats, and therefore it's kind of mixing 2 good players into the decision on who do you vote for or whatever. Embiid is clearly better at this point of their careers, but I think that will kind of detract a little bit from his voting, having another good player alongside of him versus players that absolutely carry their teams. And the other issue with Embiid is counting on him to play a full season. He played a career-high 68 games last year. If he plays anywhere close to 68 games again or more, he's probably going to be higher than 3rd on the MVP voting because he's a special player. But just that threat of predicting him to win, not knowing if he's going to be on the court for a full season is always tough. So I never like to let injuries play into it, but with Joel Embiid, it's kind of hard not to. But if he stays healthy and is on the court, this guy will definitely be one of the best players in the NBA. At number 2, I have Giannis Antetokomo from the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is now the third player on my list with 2 MVPs already. He'll turn 28 in December, and as long as he continues to be in his physical prime, he is an absolute virtual lock to be in the top 5 in voting in MVP every year. He finished 4th last year and 3rd the year before. If the Bucks are the number 1 seed in the East, with how top heavy it is, I think he'll get extra votes too. So this is just a player who is just so consistently good that you have to include him on your list, in my opinion. At number 1, I have Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks. A lot of times, narratives come into play when voting for awards. So even though this is a regular season award, the fact that Luka carried the Dallas Mavericks to the Western Conference Finals last year and you didn't win a championship, but you kind of got over that hump of losing in the first round and stuff like that. You're finally advanced a couple rounds in the playoffs. It's kind of like an arrival for some players, and that storyline for Luka, I think, will carry over into this season. Some people think this Dallas Mavericks team might even be slightly worse than last season. So if that's the case, and Luka carries them to another playoff berth on his own, basically, I think he'll get a lot of votes when you combine that playoff performance along with what he does or will do this year. So that's why I believe he will be number 1 and possibly win the MVP, is because it's just kind of his time. Like I said, the other players, 3 of my top 5, have already won it twice. So the only other case you could make for that being their time, I think, would be Joel Embiid. Now, there's a couple other guys, I didn't include on my list, like a Jason Tatum, who made the finals last year. If he has another great season and Boston is doing well, then of course he could find his way into the top 5 in voting as well. But I just think Luka, the storyline all year will be how much he has to carry and how much work he has to do. And he's absolutely capable of doing it. He's going to put up great stats and have that Dallas team right back ready to make the playoffs again. And in a loaded West, that's not guaranteed this year. There's probably 10 good teams. So if he has them in the top 6 and locked into the playoffs, I just think he's going to get a lot of credit for that. All right, that's my top 5 MVP candidates. Don't forget to drop yours in the comments below. I can't wait to read all of them. And until next time on my top 5, I'll see you later.